Welcome. We continue with History Form 3. On History Form 3, there are a lot of topics that we are going to look at. And history, as you know, is one of the subjects that are so good to follow. So I just welcome you to this wonderful topic again as we start this very first topic in Form 3. Now, the first topic is looking at the 19th century, 19th and the early 20th centuries immigrants into Central Africa. Now, immigrants, you know, the immigrants are the people who travel from one place entering into another country or another part. So here, we are going to look at the part or those people who traveled to Central Africa. The people who traveled to Central Africa. So who were those people? So we are going to look at a number of those groups or immigrants who traveled when? In the 19th and 20th century. Now, when we say 19th century, we mean the period between 1800 to 1899. This one should just remind you to the work, Form 1 work that we did, very first topic in Form 1, why we study history, and again time in history, we see that time is divided into centuries, decades, and millenniums. So there then, we know what a century means. A century meaning 100. So 19th century meaning those years between 1800 up to 1899. So in between those years, there were people who traveled from somewhere entering Central Africa. And the 20th century, we mean in the 1900s, from 1900 to 1999. There are also some people who migrated during those years. Who were those people? So we are going to look at those people. Now, to begin with, this topic centers much on the first group, and these are the Yao. The Yao as the people who migrated into Central Africa. The Yao then, here is the map showing their origins, the origins of the Yao. So when we be talking of the Yao, we talk of Malawi here, you see Mozambique the other side here, and here take note there is a river Ruvuma, Ruvuma River, there is this river Ruvuma with its some tributaries there. And again we also have river Ruambala and river Rugenda is also there. River Lucheringo is there. So Yao land is here. Mwembe, we are also going to mention Mwembe there. So take note of that, or these names that you are seeing here, they are all useful. Makua as also another useful name. We are also going to mention this one. We are going to know what are these. Is this a river? Is this a place? Is this someone? What is it? Here we have Lake Shirwa, Lake Malombe. So in short, this is the map showing the origins of the Yao. Now let us look at the origins of the Yao. The Yao, they came from northern Mozambique, east of Lake Malawi. As we have seen on that map, they came from northern part of Mozambique to the eastern side of Lake Malawi. Now, these people, the Yao, they lived near Yao Hill, from which the name was derived from, close to Makua Lomwe. So remember we mentioned Makua, so that is, you have to know that Makua were the Lomwe, the Makua Lomwe. There were also the Lolo and the Makonde. So the Yao, there was a Yao Hill there. That's where the name Yao comes from. There was Yao Hill in Mozambique. And this Yao land bounded a Ruvuma River. You have seen Ruvuma River to the north and Rucherinko River there to the western side, and Rugenda River again to the eastern side, and Luambara to the south. So in between, we have seen there the Yao land in the map there. So there then we know where the Yao came from. And we are saying that the capital, the basic place where many Yao were, it was called Mwembe. Mwembe was the capital of the Yao land. Now let us look at the reasons for the migration of the Yao into Central Africa. The predatory tribes attacked the Yao. The hostile tribes, there were some hostile tribes that attacked the Yao. Who were these? So some of them they were the Lolo, who attacked the Yao looking for food as they faced severe famine. So there was a hunger there, there was severe drought there. As a result, the Lolo, they attacked the Yao. Hence the Yao, they decided to move out of Mozambique. Also, the Lolo entered the Yao land after being dislodged by the Arab raids. So we see to it that the Lolo they were visited by the Arabs who were looking for slaves. Hence, the Lolo also they gave pressure on the Yao to say, right, we move out of our land and enter the Yao land. So with that, then the Yao felt out of place and they decided to move out of their land. The Yao sought to find a new settlement as well. So they were also looking for settlement as they were receiving that pressure there. Another tribe that attacked the Yao was the tribe of the Makua. The Makua under their leader Nairua. The Makua were also the Lomwe there, we have to take note. So under their leader Nairua, they also attacked the Yao. So they hated the Yao, the Makua, they hated the Yao because of their slave raiding activity. So the Makua, they organized themselves under Nairua to say, these people, they are embarking on slave trade. So let us attack them. So they attacked the Yao because of their involvement in slave trade. And another tribe that also attacked the Yao were the Makonde. The Makonde, they also attacked the Yao. Another factor for the migration of the Yao, apart from being attacked by other tribes, it was because of Arab slave trade, which caused civil wars in Mozambique and made some tribes like the Makua, Lomwe, and Lolo to move into Yao land as fugitives. So they gave pressure into the Yao land there. In turn, these tribes, they gained power and attacked the Yao. So as these tribes were moving or were entering the Yao land, running away from Arab slave trade, they gained power within the Yao land, and as a result, they attacked the owners of the land, that is the Yao land. Another factor for their travel, for their migration into Central Africa, they experienced the shortage of land due to population explosion or expansion, which forced some groups of the Yao to move to other areas. So there was shortage of land to cultivate, to support maybe the growing population there. As a result, they decided to move out of that Yao land. They also wanted to explore valuable trade commodities in Malawi, such as we talk of salt, iron, ivory, and slaves. So they were the traders. They got into contact with the other traders elsewhere. As a result, they were looking for trade materials. So what were these trade materials? We are talking of salt, iron, ivory, and slaves. Also, natural disasters forced the Yao to move out of their land. So these disasters include famine, we talk of floods, and drought, which greatly affected their land. Also, the Ngoni invasion of 1835, it also led the Yao to move out of their land, out of Mozambique, into Central Africa. So we see some of the factors that led to the migration of the Yao. Having looked at that, having looked at the factors for the migration of the Yao, now it's time to look at the Yao groups as they traveled. What were these groups of the Yao? So the Yao, they entered Malawi in several groups and at different times in around 1850s as they moved in different groups as they were settling also there in Mozambique. They were at different places led by different leaders. So then they also moved out at different times. So their migration started around 1850s. That's why we're talking of the 19th century immigrants. This is the 19th. This 1850s around the 19th century. So one group was the Mangochiao, the Mangochiao. So they were the first to leave Mozambique and they settled near Mangochi Hills, west of Lake Chirwa. So they settled near Mangochi Hills, near Lake Chiuta. And another group was the Machinga Yao. So this is the group, it fled the Lomwe attacks in their homeland. So it is the group that fled the Lomwe attacks from their homeland. So their first settlement was around Mandimba Hills. So in Malawi, they attacked the Mangochiao, forcing them to spread to various places in the Shire Highlands. So here, you have to understand it clearly. When the Machinga Yao came in, they also attacked the fellow Yaos who came first, those Mangochiao who settled Mangochi Hills. Then they forced the Mangochiao to spread into other parts of the Shire Highlands. The other group of the Yao was the Masaninga Yao. So they moved from Lusaninge Hills to the southeast tip of Lake Malawi. So they came from Lusaninge Hills. So that's why they are called the Masaninga Yao. So they moved to the southeast tip of Lake Malawi, to the south tip, to the end of Lake Malawi there. That's where they settled. So they were under Makata and Makanjira. So those were their leaders. And the other group was the Chisi Yao. So they initially settled in Chisi Hills before crossing to Lake Malawi and settled in present-day Mangochi district. So they were from Chisi Hills. That's why they were called the Chisi Yao. And they also settled in Mangochi district. They were known for the skills in iron working. So the Chisi, you have to take note there that the Chisi were good at iron working technology, the Chisi. So in a summary of those groups, we talk of the Yao groups like the Amachinga Yao. These ones, they were led by Mponda, Jalasi, Nkata, Nsamala, and they settled in Mangochi, the southern Lake Malawi shores. That's where they settled. So they were also having other leaders of the Machinga Yao, the Kawinga, Liwonde, Malemya, Mlumbe, Chikowi, Tiramanja, Matibwiri, and Zarafi. All these were some of the leaders of the Machinga Yao. And they also settled in Machinga, Zomba, and Mulanje. Also, Masaninga, remember them? Masaninga, they came from Masaninga Hills. Mataka was their leader, Makanjira, and they are believed to be of Nyanja origin or from Ulongwe in Baraka, and also Ndindi, and Chipoka. Those were the leaders. And they settled in Mangochi North along Lake Malawi and Salima. And the Chisi, they were led by Katuli, Kapeni, Makata, Somba, Mpama. These ones were the leaders of the Chisi. So these ones, basically the Chisi, they were led by Katuli. Originally, they were led by only their leader was Katuli. You have to take note of that because Kapeni Makata, they were the Mangochi. So Katuli led the Chisi and they settled already mentioned of Mangochi. Well, Amangochi, their leaders now, that's where we see the Kapeni, we see Makata, Somba, Mpama, Cheri Kwakwa, and Mkwanda, Chikumbu, Tambala, Pemba. These ones were their leaders of the Mangochi, Amangochi Yao. And they settled in Blantyre, Dedza, and some parts of Mangochi. Remember, these Mangochi were displaced by the Machinga Yao when they came into Mangochi. Now, we have arrived at a very, very important part, a very, very important segment where we have really to take note to say, now, why did the Yao settle in the places where they settled? So here we are going to look at factors that influenced the Yao to settle in their present settlement. Why did they choose to settle there where they settled? So number one was that some of the Yaos, especially the Chisi, they were farmers and they settled in areas with fertile soils and good rainfall. So we see to it that farming was one of the factors that contributed to choose a place. So they wanted a good place which could have fertile soils as well as good rainfall. Also, they settled near trade routes, as we have already pointed out that they were traders. They were good traders. So they were settling in the trade routes. So they could have access to goods such as ivory and slaves as they were traders. So they were settling near the trade routes. Some Yaos, again, they were fishermen, and therefore they settled near rivers and lakes, such as Shire River, Lake Malawi, and Mangochi. So we see to it that they chose Mangochi for the lake because they were originally fishermen. So being fishermen, they could settle near the lakes or the rivers. And also availability of land for settlement. So therefore, they settled in sparsely populated areas or where inhabitants were peaceful. So they were looking for a place for settlement. Mind you, they traveled for the factors. We have looked at the reasons why they migrated. Others, they ran away from pressure. As a result, when choosing for a place, they could see, do we have any pressure here? Are there other people within that are going to give us pressure? So they were looking for that availability of land for settlement. Also, availability of Islamic centers of worship, as most of these people were Muslims. So they were choosing places where they could have that Islamic center of worship to say, right, in a place where we are going to settle, is our religion going to be also advanced? So they were considering that factor. Now, let us look at the political and social organization of the Yao. Political and social organization of the Yao. The Yao did not have a centralized political state under a paramount chief. Remember that one. It's a point to note to say they did not have a paramount chief. They did not have a central political figure to say this one is an overall leader of the Yao. That's why we have seen that they could even attack each other. The Machinga Yao attacked the Mangochi Yao and dispersed them somewhere else. So we see to it, because of that, then they did not have one paramount chief. So this explains the reason why they entered Malawi in several groups. So here now you can note to say, why did they come in different groups? They did not have one permanent leader for them. So each group was independent of the other. So important power influence among them was the village, or rather the number of followers a chief is surrounded with. So important power influence among them was the village, or rather the number of followers a chief is surrounded with. So what we're talking about here is that when someone is surrounded by a number of subjects or a number of followers, a number of people who were with him, then that man had more influence, So it means that the chief with large followers was stronger than the one with small followers. So it explains itself there that those who had more subjects, they had more power, more influence than others who were just few. So the Yao land had many village headmen who were independent of each other. So in that Yao land, what could happen was that there were so many village headmen who were just independent of the other. Not, they were all the Yaos, but they were independent of the other. So each village headman was independent of the other. So each village headman was called Asienemusi. Asienemusi. So which means owner of the village, and he ruled his own clan. So Asienemusi was the owner of the village. He was just ruling his own clan, and he was independent of any other outside influence. Some headmen became powerful than others because of control of trade and wars, and ruled several village headmen. So other villages, therefore, they became very powerful, and their village headmen became controllers of maybe other 3 or 4 villages, because they were able to control trade as well as control others through war. Such chiefs were called Asiene Chilambo. Asiene Chilambo. So these ones, they were the owners of the territory or land. Asiene Chilambo and Asiene Musi, they were different. So Asiene Musi, the owner of the clan. Asiene Chilambo, owner of the territory or the land. So Chief Mataka was the first Asiene Chilambo. So Mataka was the first, Asiene Chilambo was the first to control a wide area, or a number of village headmen to be under him. So it was Mataka. Now, let us look at the influence, the Yao influence on the indigenous people. So there were both positive as well as negative influence. So to begin with positives, Malawi became engaged in long-distance trade, that is slave trade and ivory trade. So this trade brought wealth to the people of Central Africa. So Malawi now became to be engaged now because the Yao were involved in slave trade. They were the colleagues, they were the tradesmen with the Arabs. So with that, they connected Malawi to the long-distance trade. The Yao and the indigenous people exchanged their cultural practices. So the indigenous people whom they found here, especially the Manganja whom they found here, they exchanged the cultural practices. So the Yao adopted the Manganja and the Nyanja language, and also the Nyanja or the Manganja also adopted the Yao language. That's why the Manganja are scarce this time around, but what dominates now is the Yao language, not the Nyanja language. They led to the spread of Islam through their contact with the Swahili Arabs. So when the Yao were coming here, they were Muslims. and they advanced that religion into the indigenous people. As a result, they spread that religion, which they got it from the Swahili Arabs through their trade contacts. So this brought education and Islamic dressing. So as people embraced that Islamic faith, therefore, they also adopted the type of dressing, the masuli, the long, those Arabic dresses, and even Arabic education. They also defended the Logo people from the external attacks. Mind you, the Yao, when they came here, they lived together. They coexisted. They lived together with the indigenous people, the Manganja. And hence, they made that relationship to be one. As a result, whenever there was that external attack, they could defend even the indigenous people because they had guns to defend or to fight. So, for example, they resisted the Ngoni and the British, and later the British intrusion. So, the Yao defended or resisted the Ngoni and the British intrusion into their land. And also, spread of ironworking technology intensified with the entry of the Achisi Yao. So when the Chisi came in, therefore ironworking technology was intensified. They were making homes, they were improving the farming technology and many other things from iron. And intensification of fishing as an economic activity, as most of the Yao lived and worked as fishermen. So other Yaos, for example, settled in Mangochi, their trade was fishing. So that one now they are coming advanced the fishing industry. They also introduced new styles of leadership where political power was proportional to one's economic status. So they introduced that economic new style of leadership to say those who had maybe a stable economic status, they were the ones who were given leadership. So those who were leaders, they were the ones who were economically stable. Those who were at least rich, they were the ones who were given that positions of leadership. So this made many prominent wealth traders to rise into important positions of leadership. So because those people who had something, those people who were respected in the society, they were the people who controlled trade. They were the people who had something on their side. And also introduction of new crops like rice, they introduced that one. So they are learned to cultivate rice from coastal Arabs and introduced the crop in the area around Lake Malawi. So they introduced the cultivation of rice in Malawi. However, they had also some negative impact on the indigenous people. What were they? They all encouraged slave trade in Central Africa with their raids. So they were raiding the people whom they found here as well. So displacement of indigenous people due to the wars waged by the Yao in Central Africa. So some indigenous people, they kept on running away from the Yao because they were waging wars onto them for slave trade. Suppression of some cultural practices of indigenous people. So it led to the suppression of that cultural practices because the indigenous people, they kept on moving from one place to the other. As a result, therefore, their culture was suppressed by the Yao. And slave trade depopulated the southern region. So there was that depopulation because of their involvement in slave trade. And also increased the pressure on land among the people of the Shire Highlands, especially the Manganja. So when the Yao came in their groups, therefore they increased the pressure on land. As a result, the people of the Shire Highlands, they were now really at risk of pressure on land. They were scrambling for the land. And the Yao contributed to the downfall of the Marathi when they killed the last Kalonga, that was Kalonga Sosola, who was killed by the Yao. So the coming of the Yao contributed to the downfall of the Malawi kingdom. But why? Why did the Yao easily control the indigenous people in southeastern part of Malawi? Why did they easily control the indigenous people in Malawi? Number one was that they had guns which gave them superior advantage. So when they came in, maybe by force to attack, therefore the indigenous people were easily suppressed because they were fighting with guns. The indigenous people, like the Manganja, they were not united. So the people in Malawi, the indigenous people whom the Yao found here, they were not united. As a result, if people are not united, you can easily be defeated. So the Manganja were easily defeated because they were not united. So having reached this far, we have come to the end of this topic, of this part, whereby we are looking at the migration of the Yao into Malawi. We have looked at the reasons why, the factors that led to their migration. We have looked at a number of issues. We have looked at the origins of the Yao, we have looked at it, as well as we have looked at the reasons for their migration and their groups, the groups of the Yao. We have also looked at the factors for their choice of settlement. Why did they choose to settle where they settled in Malawi? And the political and social organization, we have looked at that. And also the influence. What was the influence of the Yao on the indigenous people, both positively as well as negatively? And finally, we have also looked at why the Yao easily controlled the people whom they found here. So it has been a very brief topic, but we have looked at an overview of this group that is also found in Malawi. That is part of us. When we talk of Malawi, meaning the Tumbuka, whom we looked at in Form 2. We looked at the Maravi or the Chewa, whom we looked at in Form 2. We talk of many other tribes that are there. So here we have just looked at another part that make Malawi to be Malawi what it is. Today we call Malawi because of the Tumbuka, because of the Chewa, because of the Yao, and all other tribes that are there. But here we have looked at the Yao. So it has been a wonderful part. But next time, we still continue by looking at the Lomwe. We are also going to look at the Lomwe that also make us a part of us. We cannot be called Malawi without the Tumbuka, without the Chewa, and without the Lomwe. We are one. Remember, united we stand, divided we fall. No matter what, no matter we differ where we come from, but we are always Malawians. So we have to know, who are these people? Who are they? Where did they come from? Why did they travel? And what effect or what impact did they have with their coming in Malawi? So until next time, it is another wonderful part. Until next time, thank you so much. I am your teacher, the fat lizard of the desert.